Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
In this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out.
But actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Hey gals, how are we doing?
Hello.
Doing great. So excited to be here.
Oh my gosh.
We're excited for this one.
Yes, we are so excited to have Kristen Dalton Wolfe with us. She is a mental health and life coach, motivational speaker, former Miss USA, and she leads a women's ministry in LA called She Gathers. She's also the mom of three, Moms of Three Club right here. And we're just so happy to connect with you today. We love reaching out and having conversations with women who, whether they're, they found freedom from alcohol and they're daring to live differently in a world that's, overly saturated with alcohol and as non-drinkers, and more importantly, I think living differently, living set apart as daughters of the King, and how hard that is, and yet how amazing it is. And so we're just grateful to connect with women in the space doing that work. So welcome.
Thank you. We're going to have a good talk today.
Oh, we cannot wait. So, so much of what we all kind of share in common is this, there's so many stories that keep us stuck, so to speak, whether they're about alcohol and how that contributes to, over drinking cycles, or the stories that we believe about ourselves and how that holds us back and keeps us from, again, kind of just living, as who we're called to be. So, Kristen, we just wanted to kind of chat, hear your story and hear your wisdom and all the things. So just jump right in.
Let's dive in. Okay, well, I'll start from where we sort of left off before we hit record, which was the fact that we both went to pretty much like one of the top party schools in the nation. We both went to East Carolina University, and I was just sharing with you that I did not drink throughout college. And the reason why is because when I was 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be Miss USA one day. So I was in a Bible study and I wrote out this letter, and I made a vow to myself and to God that I was not going to drink, I wasn't going to smoke, do drugs, or have sex before marriage, because I saw all of those things as distractions or detours in becoming Miss USA. And becoming Miss USA wasn't until 10 years later, but part of the reason I wanted to win is because I wanted to be a role model. And in order to be a role model, you got to live different. And so I was like, okay, I want to live how God says I'm worthy of living, even if I don't have evidence of that worthiness necessarily right now. And I just remember getting so much pushback in high school, and then before I went off to college, like when everyone found out I was going to ECU, they were like, there's no way that you're going to make it. Like, there's no way that you're not going to go there and not come home next summer having turned into a party girl. And I was like, you don't know me. Just wait.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. So that's part of the reason I was able to make it through. And it is it's something that I've recently come back to. Is I sort of, after I won Miss USA, I started drinking during that year. And so the irony really is that I held this dream and this goal in such high esteem, and it kind of kept me going and it kept me on this right track. And then I got there, and the people, the organization that I held in such high regard didn't also have the same values. And so I really wanted to belong, and I wanted them to accept me. And so I started to make little baby compromises. Yeah. And then I started to notice that I really love being buzzed. I just love it. And then I moved out to Los Angeles after I was Miss USA and discovered I could buy my own bottles of wine and keep them in the fridge. And then I discovered that if you buy 6 at Ralph's, you get a really great deal and discount. So like I just had 6 bottles of wine in my fridge at all times. Um, and yeah, and then after I became a mom, holy moly, I was like, drink, drink, drink. And I did not like being a mom at first. I had a really traumatic labor and delivery experience, and the whole like my whole view of my husband changed. And so yeah, I just relied on wine a lot and it got out of control. So I've recently come back to, hey, where was that girl who made those promises to herself? Like, where did she go? The girl who had like vision and dreams and hopes and like something to live for that kept her like living successfully on a daily basis. So I've kind of recently been coming back to that place.
Wow. Oh my gosh. There's so much there.
I know that was
like
I was like, how am I going to say this kind of short? I think I did good.
No, but it's just there's so many. Yeah, you did great. I'm just like, but I want to talk about this. I want to talk about, and this is what I do in these situations. But I love what you said about the baby compromises and how those are, if we pay attention to them, those can be our like greatest clues to where we're not living aligned to who we want to be. And when we're not paying attention to those baby compromises become big compromises over time. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, with me, with alcohol and the whole, like, but Jesus drank wine and justifying, what I was doing based on that. So, so how, what's been the, I guess, evolution of that kind of story work for you? How has that continued to feed you?
You mean just as far as compromising?
Yeah. I guess I was just looking for like, how do you coach people in that way? What do you're a coach as well. And so, what do you do?
Well, I think I'll talk about sort of the realization that I had, which was the fact that I just realized I was dimming myself and I was living small. And I think that we use alcohol and we don't realize that we're using it for this reason, but I was drinking in order to like kind of numb myself to the fact that I wasn't living up to who I was made to be. And vision and hope has so much to do with giving us a reason to live beautifully and to walk the narrow path. Like the Bible talks about walking the narrow path, and it sounds so restrictive until you realize that the narrow path is the most freeing, liberating path. But it's really hard to walk it on a daily basis when you don't have something you're walking towards, when you don't have something that you're running towards and you're excited about. And so for me, I just realized like, oh, the reason I made this decision and I was so fervent and passionate back then is because I had a vision and I believed in it. I believed that God gave it to me and I believed I was worthy of it. So how can I transfer that now? And that is something I do a lot in coaching is a lot of times most of the time we have all the answers within us and we've already realized and walked in a lot of what we're searching for. We just have to remember and find those points of strength that we have had those revelations in and we've walked in. So now like 2.0 part of my life, the new vision is my women's ministry, She Gathers. So we went on hiatus in 2020 for obvious reasons. And then also I was just having burnout because I was in people pleasing mode. Which also alcohol will make you do that.
Oh yeah.
It'll make you be a people pleaser because you're like anxious all the time and just worried about what people think about you. You want to like look good and do what you think other people want you to do. And that's like so exhausting. And it's also such a tactic of the enemy. It's such a distraction and deception. So anyways, so I relaunched in October 2022, so 6 months ago. And I was probably drinking like almost a bottle of wine a night up until that point. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I have to fast alcohol. And it got up to like 10 days before the first day of our launch. And I was like, I should start fasting now. But I just was like, no, I was not ready because for me, wine was a comfort. It was my friend. I could rely on it. And I liked the way it made me feel in the moment. And I never really dealt with hangovers. So I didn't have that incentive to like, I didn't necessarily feel bad the next day, you know? So I was like, all right, the only way that I'm going to be able to do this is if I do what I did before when I was Miss USA, or preparing for it, which was to completely saturate myself in information and inspiration around this topic. And so that's what I did. I read books on it, listened to a bajillion podcasts, and I fasted. And then I had this bottle of wine waiting for me after the night that we relaunched to like celebrate. And I came back home and was surprised by the fact that I didn't want it, which is just so unlike me. And habitually, I almost wanted to drink it just like, I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to keep this up, so I might as well drink it. But I was like, no, we can do this. Let's just take it one day at a time. And now it's been 6 months and I want to be like forever alcohol free because at this point, I feel like I'm winning. I feel like I'm winning in life. I don't feel like I'm depriving. And the reason I feel like I'm winning is because I've changed my subconscious beliefs, which I know y'all talk a lot about, around alcohol and around myself and around what I thought that it did for me and what I thought it was. So yeah, it's a big part of it is changing your subconscious beliefs and having something to live for that gives you a reason to walk the narrow path. Like you have to have vision.
Yeah, so true. Of those subconscious beliefs, was there one that you felt like was the most trickiest to kind of deal with and overturn?
I think it was really the notion and the looking forward to of at the end of the day, this is the thing in this beautiful glass that makes me feel like an adult and like elegant and separate from the grittiness and like blahness of motherhood. Like it made me feel like somewhat elegant and fancy. And also like, oh, I'm relaxing, and it kind of made like preparing dinner a little bit more like, I don't know what the word is. And fast time, just a little bit more like enjoyable or whatever. And then I started to replace it with I call it the grapefruit sparkle because I haven't found anything better than this for cost effectiveness, calories, and nutrition. Okay. Because that all the alcohol free thingies, wines, and aperitifs are full of stuff. Sugar, sugar, sugar. I was shocked when I first went to Bevmo to try to find some fancy alcohol free stuff that the number one ingredient in all of it is sugar or like something terrible. And I was like, what? So we're just
sulfites.
Exactly. So we're just going to drink sugar water. Like that's so dumb. So, and it costs like $400. Not really. But it's like really like almost the same price or more as fancy wine. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like I can make my own thing. So for me, Sauvignon Blanc was like my drink of choice. So I was like, what can I do to create that feeling? And so I got fresh pressed grapefruit juice and either a LaCroix or some kind of flavored sparkling water and combine that. And I drink that every night. And then you get your vitamin C. There's no like unnecessary sugar that isn't like real and pressed from a grapefruit. And it cost me $4 for.
I was waiting for you to say, because when you said grapefruit sparkle, I was waiting for you to, because we had the East Carolina connection, and you said y'all at the beginning too. I'm like, what else? Of course. I do a fever tree, which is a fever tree grapefruit every single day with a lime LaCroix.
Oh!
Now, yeah, so the fever tree grapefruit is like 30 calories, it's not a lot of sugar. It's like the best of the best. And
Yeah.
it is that same kind of ritual and feeling of it's refreshing at the end of the day. And I look forward to it. But now I'm like, ooh, I'm going to have to try. I like that. Your version is like the elevated from that. So yeah, I'm going to try that.
I also firmly believe that like the pretty glass makes the drink. You know what I mean? Like that was one of the things when I stopped drinking. I was like, nobody is taking my pretty glasses. And when I go out, I'll often say like, I want whatever, I end up ordering in like a cocktail glass because they're fun, and that's fine.
Yeah, I know. My mother-in-law was recently here, and I didn't like come out and say like I'm not drinking anymore because I didn't want her to ask questions, but she was like, "Oh, I noticed like you haven't really been drinking. Should we like get rid of your wine glasses and like put them somewhere else?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. Like I still drink out of them. Like I still drink water out of them,
Yeah.
It's important."
Yeah. So true. So true.
I love how you were talking about too, because I could just relate to this so much. It's so hard to articulate that is what the feeling was, but it's also interesting to see when you say like you felt fancy, and it was almost like this way of taking the discomfort that we feel in the grittiness of motherhood and all that comes with it, and having this like, not having to deal with that discomfort, and so I feel elevated, I feel classy, I feel this. And it's so interesting to see how that just combines together. And of course we end up with subconscious beliefs that say that like, this is what we should be doing every day. And this is the thing that's helping us relax. And this is the thing that's helping us survive motherhood. And it's just not true. But I think that's a hard one for people to articulate or to admit that might be, part of that. So
I think too, and I know y'all talk about this, but it was really helpful for me to see and dispel the integration of mommy juice culture and like the memes and the videos and like every movie you watch and every TV show. Like I would watch a TV show and everyone's drinking something and I'm like, now I want to drink, because that just even when you're watching like James Bond or like in Game of Thrones or whatever it is, and the leaders are taking a drink to make a decision, you kind of think like, oh, even like when we as leaders gather together, we should all have wine so we can make better decisions. So we can have like a brainstorming session because it just like gets in your mind. And so then when I started so anyway, it just becomes so like normal. You don't even think about it because that's just what people do. And so then, and Christy, I know you're like, and both of you are really, you love The Naked Mind and y'all talk about it. When I listened to that book, The Naked Mind, and learned about the marketing behind all of it and just how we are just these like blind followers, it's infuriating. And then I just remember like, hold on a second. My whole thing all along was that I wanted to be set apart, and here I am being basic. Yeah. I need to remind myself that no, I don't want to be ordinary. I want to be extraordinary. Not extraordinary. Right. And so just like when you realize what's happening, you kind of like wake up and you're like, I'm not going to fall into that.
Yeah. There's so many people that I like end up coaching and they're like, one of the reasons I like to drink is because it makes me feel rebellious. And then you tell them that like 86% or something like that around there, of Americans drink. So being the non-drinker is actually being the rebel, right? Being exactly what you just said, being the non-drinker sets you apart, And so it is the radical, like countercultural decision to, as you said, set yourself apart, is to kind of live this alcohol-free life. And it's just, we're blinded, like you said, by all of this information to the contrary. So it's
Yeah,
bananas.
I know.
Yeah.
It's almost like that incentivizes me a lot. So, Christy, when you and other accounts post about how being alcohol free is mainstream, I'm like, no, don't make it mainstream. It makes it less sexy.
Yeah. No, but I mean the good news is, right? And the fact that there are the generations under us, like, which will be so great for all of our kids, right?
Yeah.
Are wising up to this because of the health risks and because of what we know now, and because everybody is kind of like, oh shoot, you know, breast cancer, not good. So it's just it is becoming more mainstream, but it's still, you know, it's still not the norm. I want it to be the norm, but it's not yet.
Yeah. I agree with you. So many girls and in my women's ministry out here in LA are just like starting to wake up to it. And so many of us are living an alcohol-free lifestyle. So it's really fun to see.
Yeah. I noticed that you also coach teens. Do you end up talking with them about alcohol?
No, I
Not
don't.
yet.
Most of the teens that I coach are very they're high achievers. They have big goals. They're very like active and have a lot going on in their life. So they don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
not usually something that they come to me about is,
Gotcha.
you know, that kind of struggle. Usually they're struggling with like I mean, not that you I think that it could be something they end up struggling with if we don't address what they're dealing with, which is perfectionism and pressure and people pleasing once again, and not feeling enough. Because I think when you struggle with those things, you can end up turning to coping mechanisms like alcohol. So we kind of more get to the root of it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, you mentioned the people pleasing before too, and as a reformed people, you mentioned it as something that like alcohol kind of leads to that. I mean, which it absolutely, in my case, it accelerated my people pleasing. You mentioned like the fitting in as initially being, you know, once you were Miss USA and the fitting in element of that, you know, fitting into that world, and then for me being a people pleaser before and then alcohol accelerating that and the perfection, I mean all of that, it's when I first started this journey to explore my relationship to alcohol, I understood, I saw that there were stories that I had to untangle around alcohol. What I didn't see right away were those stories that were, you know, based in who I am and how they fit together with the people pleasing and the perfectionism and the, you know, the hustling for our worth, the way that the world sends us the messages that, you know, that busy is sexy, that hustling is sexy, achieving, performing, doing. Oh my gosh. And that was one of the greatest gifts for me of starting this journey. And that's why I always say that, like, you know, my hitting my max pain point with my relationship to alcohol, I'm so grateful for it because it opened the door to my return home to the Lord and who I am based on, you know, through looking through his eyes and not anybody else's. And so I love that that's something that you coach around now before maybe these women, these girls, you know, have a chance to really solidify their identity. And so yeah, I guess I would love to hear just more about that, what that, if that's something that comes from your personal life, or what has been your learning in doing that work.
Well, I think it's really easy to sleepwalk through life, but not realize that you're doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So true.
37 years.
And I say that because, like, I didn't think I was sleepwalking.
Same.
Me neither.
Like, I
So
think
true.
a lot of achieving leader type people are like, I don't even relate. Like they could be listening to this right now and be like, I don't relate to that. Like,
Yes.
you know, but you don't until you wake up.
Yep.
And I say all of that because I mean, I was coaching and teaching and writing all at the same time that I now looking back feel like I was asleep. And so what I mean is, I didn't realize how deception had crept in. And that is the whole power of deception is you don't know. You're under the blanket.
Yeah. Until I started doing this work and meeting other people, I had no one. And so when you look around and everybody's looking the same as far as the drinking goes, like why would you step into awareness and wake up if it all
Right.
looks like it's what we should be doing, especially as like moms trying to work our butts off to make things happen? Why would we think that we needed to do something different? You know?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's like when I say wake up, what I mean is I feel like patterns started to come into place that then the devil started to like magnify and sort of put this like cloak over me, which also alcohol does. So we're like helping, like me and the devil are like helping each other. And we're also reading the Bible. So, and teaching people about the Bible. But I didn't realize that like the very thing that drove me before actually, which was to be set apart, which was to live differently, which was to glorify God, which was to live like a pure life, ended up taking me down. Like I ended up like, I was preaching like, don't compromise, when really I was over here compromising. But they were it was behind closed doors. Like people didn't really know how much I was drinking. It was like coping for me. And I started to think that I deserved it because I was doing so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like such a good Christian that like I deserve to like have a few vices, you know? And so that's just like the deception right there. And then suddenly you wake up to it and you realize like, oh my gosh, this thing isn't helping me. This thing isn't helping me cope. This isn't my comfort. This is actually making me small. This is stealing my purpose. It's stealing my destiny. Like it's making me dumber. It's making me like forget what I want to say. It's making me lose track of my thoughts. It's fogging my creativity. And I thought it was my friend.
Yeah.
So it's a toxic relationship. Yeah.
It's so interesting how you said like partnering with, it's so insidious. Evil is so insidious in how it works to, just, slowly and quietly and cunningly put us to sleep in our lives. Yeah. And then you wake up and you're like, all this while I'm actually partnering. I'm actually making what, like, how did I miss this? But also praise God that I did wake up and he is good. And he was not giving up on me and he brought me back. And so, oh my gosh, there's so much that I can relate to in what you just shared. It's so good.
Well, I think too, like another way that you stay asleep is you don't think that you have a problem, or like Christy, what you were talking about, you're like, well, when you match everyone else, you don't think you do.
Yeah.
And I actually did go to AA during, I think it was either 2020 or 2021, when it was so easy. They made it so easy. You just get on Zoom, put your camera off, change your name. Ain't nobody gonna know. It's really anonymous. And so I went on and listened and then also read the big book and discovered that I was not by definition an alcoholic. So I was like, okay, I don't have a problem. I'm not an alcoholic. We're good. And so then I started to learn about the whole concept of a spectrum and gray area drinking. And just because you're not an alcoholic doesn't mean that it's best for you. And so I even like that argument when it comes to, well, Jesus drank wine or people drank wine in the Bible. It's like, okay, it sounds like we're looking for loopholes. Sounds like we're looking for exception, or you're looking for what is going to be accepted, not what is highest and what is best. What is highest and what is best for you? Because it says in the Bible that kings and leaders don't drink.
Yeah.
For the people who are suffering, yeah, you can. You know?
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. So were you, was there, I know you said you wanted to like fast, like, you know, before like She Gathers relaunched. And so that was like the primary motivation, but was there a moment kind of like leading up to it where you realized that all of this stuff that you mentioned like compounded and it was causing you to like not live your best life, and you like came to that realization? Or was that not until you felt better after taking a break? Like, when did you kind of come to the realization that it was like holding you back to the extent it was, I guess?
Okay, well, I knew that I needed to like slow my roll for a while. I'm like, this is not good. But definitely over time I was noticing major brain fog and forgetfulness, and I could also hide that and call it mommy brain. Yeah, everyone will buy that, you know?
Yeah.
Forgetfulness and just like I would be talking and then not be able to find words. I was like, ooh, that's kind of scary. So there was that. And, okay. And so then I was doing a podcast interview, and the night before I stayed up and I think I drank a bottle and a half of wine. And then I woke up that morning at like 5 a.m. You know how like you wake up really early after drinking and it just doesn't feel good. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to get clear in the head. And I was like, what did I do? And so I took a cold shower, and then I got on the computer and read through all her questions and wrote out all my answers, because I was like, I need to form thoughts, you know? And then I watched the interview back and I showed it to Chris, and he didn't know that I had drank like that. And I showed it to him and I was like, what do you think about this interview clip? And he was like, oh, you've come a really long way since then. Like you've really grown a lot. Like, and he thought the interview was from like 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Because it was so just like not good. Like it was fine, but it was just flat, you know? And then I told him, I was like, I drank a bottle and a half of wine the night before. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And so anyways, so that was part of it. I was a little bit scared. And then so that's really what it was. And then it wasn't really until the fasting that I started to see all of the gifts, like more gifts kept coming from being alcohol free that I didn't even know were affecting me, that I was like, holy moly. It was like somebody took like, I don't even know, like some kind of like heaviness on my brain and my soul and just like popped it open. You know?
Yeah.
So many things, so many gifts started coming. Like I was like,
gifts.
I didn't know that I was like dimming myself down and playing small even in my marriage. Like I would like not say things and hold things in, and because I was trying to keep the peace. And then suddenly like not drinking made me so clear in my mind and emotions that I was able to just like say things and call things out and like boldness without emotion attached to it. And I was like, whoa, like who is this person? Not easily offended, no jealousy, like not into so much creativity. I was just like, this is the life. Hello. So I don't feel like I'm depriving myself. And I think that's the key, is like, you can't feel like you're depriving yourself in order to sustain it. It's got to feel like you're winning.
100%. When people always say like, when does it get easy? And I say, as soon as you start like seeing living all the benefits of it and not seeing this as something that you're being deprived of, but seeing all the ways that it's like enhancing and making your life amazing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to your point, sometimes you don't even think you need the benefits. You don't even think your life is really suffering
Totally.
that much until
Yeah.
you stop. And then you're like, oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. 100%.
And it's got to be for more than a month. You have to like keep doing it and be like retraining your brain and have mission and purpose and vision along with it. It can't just be like stopping alcohol. It has to be like a holistic effort. Don't you think, Christy and Mead?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we were just talking to another guest about that actually earlier today, about how the easy part is putting down the drink. The quote unquote hard part is everything that comes next, all the work that comes next, dealing with whatever it is that put you in that spot to reach for the drink, whether, it is grief or, being a mom or relaxing or whatever, unwinding all of that stuff is just, that's where the real work comes in. But it's like, I'm sorry, I'm stealing your line here, but it's this amazing forever work that we get to do, it's so good.
Well, I love that you said that, Christy and Mead. Just it's the forever work we get to do, because when you reframe it and you're not like the hard part begins when, it's like, no, this is the good part. This is this is exciting. This is magical. Like you're uncovering like layers of your beautiful divine essence. Like how much more fun could life be? Like it's so exciting and there's always more.
Yeah. It's so true. It reminds me of the episode we did, our 15, it was the 15 favorite things or whatever we did. We basically we listed our favorite things about being alcohol free, and we came to the call and we like went through them together, and we were just like, no, that one and that one. And we like thought of new ones along the way, and we were just like, oh my gosh, we can't even actually cram this all into 15 things. It's impossible because you learn things every day.
That's so cool.
I always said that, finding freedom from alcohol would have been good enough. And that's what I thought it would be. Like, first it was removing alcohol from my life, but also that sounded miserable. And so I stayed stuck for a long time thinking like, well, with the traditional method, you remove it from your life and I can see where there will probably be some benefits, but if I'm still wanting it, if I'm still desiring it, if it takes all this effort to not do it, then I'm going to be miserable. But then when I found this naked mind and I'm like, oh, I can change my desire and oh my gosh, let's go. And I found, freedom from it. And now I can look at a glass of wine the same way I would look at a glass of paint thinner. There's no chance I'm going to pick up a glass of paint thinner, no matter what glass it's in. Right. But it's okay. Like now I have freedom from that. Okay, good. Now I can just ride off into the sunset. And then what comes after that is like, holy cow, like there's so much good that comes from this. But also, by the way, it is going to take a little work and it's not going to be easy, but also that's why it's so great. And so I always say like, I found freedom from all the things once I found freedom from alcohol and it just keeps getting better.
Trajectory.
Yeah.
I love that you just mentioned the paint thinner, by the way, because that was actually a really key learning for me, was the fact that it's ethanol. Like alcohol is legitimately poison disguised in like fancy grapes from France and like $200 a bottle paired with whatever, and you're like,
yep.
It feels so like dignified and like I know about wine, and it's like I don't know, when you just dispel all of that, you're just like, no, are you crazy? That's like it's ethanol.
That's right. Yeah, I used to say like I had soccer written across my forehead, like joke's on you. You're thinking you're being fancy and elegant and cool with your glass of gasoline, the same thing that goes in our gas tank. Like, oh my gosh, who knew? But also like, I mean, thankfully I do know now, and it's not just the knowing it, it's and we even talked about this earlier too. It's that experiential knowledge, like you were even talking to Kristen, of like, now I'm realizing how creative, how much more creative I can be without alcohol. And I'm realizing these things that I didn't even realize I was kind of missing while I was in it. that's where it just continues, that experiential knowledge just continues to feed us. And yeah, it's like, why would I drink that again? But
I know, you become so empowered. Like even noticing when you go into a restaurant, like seeing how they've placed the wine bottles and the liquor, how it's all high up so everybody can see it. It's like the placement of everything, and you realize that's just all about money.
Oh
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not gonna, no
I'm
more
not contributing to that.
No
I already contributed.
you. Taking my power back.
Taking my power back. I love
Please.
that.
Fool me
So
once, but yeah.
So good. All right, I have a softball fun question.
Okay.
Tell us the most fun thing about being Miss USA.
The most fun thing was training with the Baila Salsa Congress. So I always wanted to be a salsa dancer. My minor in college was Spanish. I studied abroad, and I feel like I have a inner Latina. And so it was one of those just like dreams, or one of those goals that I had when I first won. You kind of tell them your goals for the year, and I was like, I want to learn salsa. But not only did I get to learn, I got to train with a professional group and perform for the World Salsa Congress in Los Angeles and New York. And I got to design our costume, which was really cool.
Fun.
So do we have video of this? Can we link to that in our show notes? We're gonna need that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And some photos of the costume for sure.
Yeah, that was my highlight of the year for sure.
That is so
It was
cool.
so fun. Yeah.
So cool. Well, it's that time, guys. Time for our Tiny Tina. What is one tiny new action, Kristen, that you would love our listeners to try?
Wait, what is Tiny Tina?
Sorry. So, I can't. So, Reed, you do it. I can't. I'm laughing too hard.
So I make like acronyms out of everything, and so I was like, tiny new actions. Like when we're creating change, we don't have to do the big stuff. Like we don't have to make big change. Like just take one tiny new action. Yeah. And then when I was writing it in like client notes all the time, I'm like, I gotta shorten this, and it was anyway. Tina. And then Christy's like, but it's got to be a tiny Tina, and then it's a tiny Tina Turner, one of my clients.
But what does it stand for, though, Tina?
Tiny action. Tiny new action.
TNA, but we can't say TNA because that's
tiny new action.
Action.
That's cute. Oh, I love that. Tiny new action. Tiny. Y'all are hilarious. Tiny Tina. Okay. I just wanted to know, the background behind Tina. Okay.
Yes. We need to talk.
Yeah,
we need to redefine her.
Well, and we like to invite our listeners to, give them something that they can one little thing that they can, take from here. What would we, invite them to do?
Yeah. Okay. So we actually just did this in my women's group last week. And that is to write a letter to yourself and to God. So this comes back to the story of me and my 12-year-old self when I wrote that letter in Bible study, where I was like, hey, God, this is what I'm committing to. This is how I want to live, because this is the dream you've put in my heart, and I believe you. And so I just realized a few weeks ago that I needed to rewrite a letter. Like, hello, that thing probably expires. It probably expired when I won Miss USA, clearly. So I needed to get back to that. So that's my action activation for your listeners, which is to, first of all, you got to have a vision and get your dream. And even if you're like, I don't have one, Kristen, at least have some kind of result that you would like this year. Maybe it's like, I just want to feel better. I just want to have more energy. I want clear skin, or I want to be less reactive in these certain situations. Just pick something that is going to make you better. And then write a letter and be like, God, this is what I'm committing to. And it's to you, it's to yourself and to God. And put it in an envelope and address it to him, and put it in a drawer or some special box, and go back and open it after you've accomplished that goal or that dream. Because you know what? Once you've made the decision, it's done. It needs to be done. Like, it's a vow. It eliminates decision fatigue. You don't think about it anymore. Like,
yes,
it's just, you've made it. So honor yourself.
Yeah.
I love, like, the key to success is not feeling motivated. It's discipline. It's making a promise to yourself and following through with it. That's really all it is. If we could just simplify it, it's really that simple.
So good.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
I love that. I always talk about like where is our attention and what is the intention and how are those aligned or not aligned, and that can give us a really good clue to, you know, what our next opportunity for growth is and in what areas. And so I cannot wait for this tiny Tina for myself. I'm going to do the same thing. I love it, girl. Thank you.
Love that. Yes.
Brilliant.
Kristen,
Thanks for having me, girls. Oh.
Yeah, tell everybody where they can find you and talk about, you know, tell everyone about She Gathers and where they can find that, because it's so amazing. And every time I'm in LA, literally, I miss it by 1 week. It's ridiculous.
I know. Yeah. Well, She Gathers is my monthly teaching / coaching ministry where I lead women through inspiring and actionable messages and meditations. And then we often have special guests. And so you can find information on that at She Gathers L.A. on Instagram, and personal coaching with me, KristenDaltonWolfe.com. And you can follow me on Instagram at Kristen J. Dalton.
And we'll also link to your book, The Sparkle Effect, Step into the Radiance of Your True Identity. That's on Amazon, I know. So we'll link to that.
I got the last one in the UK. You've got to restock over here, babe.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll put everything in the show notes so it's easy to find you. And we just so appreciate you and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really loved it so much.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
So fun.
So good.